So one of our first live videos together with Doug from Fragfarm, UK. So in this time we do it in English, not always in German like I do my last lives, which usually make every Sunday. Today is public holiday, so I can use the situation now that we are live to explain why some people are waiting for their lab analysis or for their tests. Some of them are arriving at Thursday, and in Germany is Friday public holiday and Monday also. So that means we start tomorrow again, and the most of these tests are made on Thursday till night. So Tuesday we do the rest of it, and then we deliver the tests starting from tomorrow on. That's always in time of Christmas and Easter time. We have some delays in, but that causes only due to the different time frames we have here. So we discussed this live stream a few days ago that we want do some of it. And I had not a real name for the live stream today, so I talk it Real Talk ICP. So maybe it's a good point. Yeah, and I invite Doug from Fragfarm because we work some time now, 2 years, 2.5 years close together, mainly about farming. So at the end, everything what we do is at the end how makes our course growing faster, more healthy, and more colorful, and avoiding the frustration time, which is the most time of a year is frustrating for a core farmer, fighting against all issues and problems. And that's why I want to talk today. So how our understanding of ICP and using the machines and whatever we doing with that has the background on which background we have on it. So Doug is also one of our ICP consultants for UK and for the USA, who gives a lot of support and consulting to customers which have issues and problems and want to have a quite good interpretation of the ICP tests, what we made there. So if somebody is then in the UK or in other English-speaking countries, he can choose Doug as a consultant. It's possible to get a bit more of his time and a very deep look. If you can buy support time. It's on your website, right? So you can get it on your website. So you can book Doug, and then he looks very deep into your numbers. He has an access to a specific software for consultants where they have more different values, more different numbers on it, and can find out about the trends. So can help and can do a better interpretation as is possible. Only look to the PDF. So say hello, Doug.
Hello.
So
that's quite an intro.
Yeah, my live streams usually are very long, so I just had one in German today. It's we show a little bit of aquavise, and it's always out of the farm. So which is like your company also, which is the heart of our company is the core farm at the end. So all the products and all the ICPs and the ideas coming from the farming idea to make it better. So that's our background, and I know it's the same of yours and many others of people working in this business. Is the base, the heart was the first aquarium, the first SPS, the first tenuis, the first whatever coral growing and doing the fragments. And so we speak all the same language around the world, which is quite an interesting thing, I think.
Yeah.
Dan, you can start. What we want to talk about?
Well, I mean, I think what might be interesting is recently I've been looking at the data at a much higher level. Maybe that's a good place to start, looking at some of the major things that we see with the ICPs. The one, I mean, I guess the one that would be interesting to start with is salinity. the number of people who send an ICP and the salinity is not correct. That's a one I always like to start with. So I
Maybe
think.
you should remove your lenses because it's scratching on your mic.
Oh, is it? Okay.
It's bad noise on it, possibly.
Sorry.
Oh, you need the lens now. Yeah.
Is that better?
I hope so. I think it's better now. Yeah. Yesterday I just also do a live, but I have massive issues with my mic. It's also going damaged, so I could repair it tonight. So it's better. Yeah, salinity. If you start on it, it's it's a funny thing because it's I think too much people don't give the detail on salinity and how salinity is detected and what it means when it comes from the ICP. That's right. Yeah.
But then the impact it has on all of the elements. The biggest issue I've seen with salinity is when the salinity is low, but the calcium is high. So that causes some big problems, doesn't it? Because you then come to correct the salinity when you see it's low, but then you have to look at if you correct the salinity, all of the elements are going to be high, including the calcium, even higher. So that's one I think that is I see quite a lot. I'm trying to actually get the numbers here to give some context. I had some numbers somewhere. Where are they?
The numbers of customers or people who has a low or not a correct
number
salinity.
Yeah. Do you know roughly what's the big number? I mean, what percentage roughly?
No, not today. I didn't check it. So.
You didn't look at. But it's an interesting one because, and I do try my best to explain that this is really the number one element, the number one parameter to chase because it determines the concentration of everything on the ICP. And I think there's also on the total ICP. I think it's sometimes quite hard to explain the REL 35 PSU column, talking about how the adjusted number would be if you were to correct the salinity. But I'll try and find the numbers. I'm
a little bit surprised sometimes why it's so difficult. Because if you go in school and you have even a normal standard school, you will have these mathematics about relation. So or by diluting. So it should be clear if you dilute a solution that everything if you dilute a solution by half with pure water, then it should be clear that it's only the half of calcium in. So if we have the seawater with 35, we dilute it to 17.5 salinity, then it should be clear that every other element is also by half. So if it's corrected. So I was also a little bit surprised how many questions we have about the salinity. But by the way, I think we have sometimes also a bit of misunderstanding about the way how salinity is detected, because there are several possibilities to do that. You see, you can buy the refractometers, you can use the ICP, and even in the ICP you have differences depending on how the lab's doing the testing of it. So some don't do that. So, or I don't know if there are some labs now who don't do that. So you can see a little bit for the sodium or the chloride level, you can calculate the salinity. It's an old formula based on natural seawater, and it calls chlorinity. And with that, you can detect, you can calculate the salinity back. So it's not detected, it is made in the ICP. So that's also the reason for the Reef ICP don't have the big vial. It's a 50 milliliter vial. It's got that because we detect it directly, and we don't go over the ICP and the chloride peak to calculate it. Because you have a little bit of problem about the situation that chloride is a mass element, or chloride is a mass ion which is in the water. We have 20 grams of it. At the same time, we search 2, 3, 4, 5 micrograms of another element. So the spread is huge, and that's why we have difference in this detecting in the chloride. It's not so super clean, super clear. So we use other machines for it when we do that. And so we do not do that test. I know that there are labs outside doing that. And when we do test it, we test it with a WTW lab machine, which is especially made for that. And they have a patent, and it's the only one which I know which can detect the salinity on 0.1. All other systems, based on the market, they have 1 to 2% of correction. But the 1 or 2% is not based on 35, it's based on 100. So, of course, these conductivity sensors working from 0 to 100, and there you have a mistake of 1 to 2%, which means if you detect around 35, you can have 33 or 35 or 34, 36, which is in the understanding of the reefers way too much difference. So they think that every refractometer and everything detect on 0.1 PSU. So, but all these detection methods are indirect. So always you need a recalculation to PSU, because PSU is not a value. It's like a colonity. It's or TKH is it's a factor. So, and PSU, practical salinity unit, we use that VTV which to the conductivity, and then it's calculated by UN water. So even if you use, let me say, a GHL or another probe, and they calculate by Copenhagen water or Miami water, whatever, it could be a little bit different.
Right.
So at the end, none of us knows how many salt is exactly in, because there is some specific other materials who can cause a little bit of conductivity, and so it's spread. But it does not matter. So at the end, it makes no difference if you have 34.5 or 35 about it. The only difference makes it that you bring it to the relation to your other elements, where you can get a little bit the right direction. And what we need to see also is that we do all that for aquarium and not for nature or seawater, which could be totally different.
Yeah. No, I think the biggest problem I've seen is when obviously people haven't tested their salinity. They come to do a calcium test, see that their calcium's low, then dose more calcium, have 450 calcium with 32 PSU, then come and correct the salinity, and then you've got sky high calcium.
Yeah, but that's why we have this related values on the side.
Yep.
That's especially why we made that.
Yep, that's why it's so useful. But we perhaps should explain it a bit better to everyone. You know, maybe do one live stream just talking about that. Maybe, I don't know. But it's my message to everyone is: look at, whenever you test calcium, test your salinity at the same time, so that you don't make a mistake. If you've got low salinity and you got high calcium, then of course you come to correct your salinity, you're going to have even higher calcium. So just be careful with salinity when you come to adjust elements, the major elements: magnesium, calcium, sulfur, and so on.
I'm not sure, when you do the live streams like that, what we make here and now, and I see which people are looking at the live stream now or asking, I think there you have a quite higher level. So maybe we should do that in a video, which is more looked or more in attention of the most reefers. Again, I think it's not only that. It's also a problem when you still buy today refractometers. You get them with the sodium chloride solution, which is not a seawater solution. So even there you can have issues about 1 or 2 points of PSU, and it is also a point that the way to look on certain levels is not a look overall and get the right relation together. It is chasing numbers.
Hmm.
So sometimes I see people, they look so close to the salinity that they forget everything else and make around and make water change and add salts till they get to 34.8. And on the other side, like you say, they forget completely to look how is the relation against to the magnesium and calcium and alkalinity, which they can even see on the ICP test. They see it on the salinity line that this by graphical view, you can see, oh, you're in line or not. So yeah, it's it's difficult sometimes. So
We've got a question here, I think.
yeah, it's Ollie's. You know who Ollie is?
No.
Ollie is one of the best reefers. He's based in Switzerland. Long time fauna user, but with a very 2 wet toms and total filling for the reef tanks. And yeah, it's one of these, surely one of the best reef tanks, because it's not only that he started a reef tank and makes it nice, he can keep them for many years. So that's the funny thing about
So
it.
are there trace elements and micronutrients in the ICP that need to be set to a specific value to support the tabletop effect? Aha. Are there elements that yes and no, the tabletop effect? Okay. Do you want me to deal with that one?
Yeah.
Okay. So tabletop effect is all to do with the formation of a very special calcium carbonate that forms on the surfaces and within the corals as well, called ACC, amorphous calcium carbonate. The production of amorphous calcium carbonate is dependent upon some saccharides, so some sugars, and a big part of that is carbonic anhydrase. So you need to have zinc, a very small amount of iron, cobalt, and manganese. So the calcium carbonate that forms on the surfaces is like the battery. And it's not just on the surfaces, it's happening inside the corals as well. It forms very quickly onto the surfaces, and it is an organized calcium carbonate, which is neither a liquid nor a solid. It's kind of in between. It is it's then used. So basically, it very rapidly builds up this amorphous calcium carbonate, and it stores the calcium carbonate for later, and that's why you get the tabletop effect. So it takes it from the water, stores it on the surfaces, and then it's used slowly throughout the day, as and when it's needed. So it's quite a complex thing that we've not fully explained how that works yet, but that's effectively how you get the tabletop. So things that you need to make the tabletop work is clean surfaces, so very limited bacteria and biofilm content on the surfaces. You need good metals, and you're going to need, so in particular, zinc is the most important. Zinc, well, all of the dynamic metals. And you're going to need the correct amount of saccharides in the water for supporting the production of carbonic anhydrase. I think that answers it, does it? It's a little more complicated than I was wanted to get, but that's the essence of it. So when you get the tabletop, one way of checking if you get the tabletop is if you put in, I don't know, 1.5 DKH with your bolus, then if you don't see all of that 1.5 DKH in one go, then it's going somewhere, and it's going into amorphous calcium carbonate. So that's the way of telling whether whether it's working. You will have some amorphous calcium carbonate build up anyway, but you want to maximize it. So when bolus really works very well is when the surfaces are clean and you're building up quite a large amount of this amorphous calcium carbonate. Do we have more questions here?
That's when we do a live stream such shortly, like today, this is normally there's not too much people looking for, so we have 34 people now at the moment. We need next time when we do the next step for it. It's also a good test if it's YouTube works with too, but it works fantastic. So without any issues, so we can do that more often. Now we have 32, 36 people going here, and it's a public holiday also, or some at work.
Same here.
Yeah. Can the depletion of bacterial diversity in older ground prevent the development of tabletop effect top using live rocks? I don't think so.
Depletion of bacterial diversity, example in old aquariums, prevent the development of tabletop effect using live rocks.
I don't think so. It is not a point of the diversity of the bacteria. It's the point of the first problem of old tanks is the depots. So which can go back into the water. So the equilibrium between the levels in the water and the levels in the surface, because the surface is large. Then it's the question how much bacteria film we have overall, and it's not only on the surface; it's also the bacteria on the cores, which work with storing of. Depends that what you said. We also find out that EPS and the biofilm can store bicarbonate for their own use, and they can give it back to the water also. So
well, EPS is actually used in amorphous calcium carbonate production as well.
Yes, also, but the point is that we always search for one reason why things happens, and how deeper you go, how more you see that is a combination of different things, chemically, biological, physics. And we talked with a lot of scientists and specialized people, and some of them, after a short time, they also said, yeah, it's a thing about the surface, and there are so many different things running at the same time that we cannot say 100% if it's going more in this or this direction. At the end, I must say, what is the benefit to know till to the end? For us, it's no benefit at all, because we need to understand the base. So how it happens, why it happens. So that we have some reef tanks, the pH go down after the dosing, which makes at the first view no sense. If you look deeper, it makes sense, absolutely. And it's for the dosing, it's a point is a proof that the bolus stuff is working. So we had this one tank happens, and at the end I found out that the bicarbonate solution was standing. They put it in a big jar, and usually we fill it up directly in the canisters. So then it's closed, and so the solution stays quite stable. It's not hot. It's cold water. What we use, the normal hand warm water. So nothing special like it's in the manual. But this type, the guys working in our farm, they put it in a big jar, let the pump running, and put the jar against the heater. So the solution gets 55, 58 degrees over some days. So it turns nearby to 20, 30, 40% to sodium carbonate. Which happens if bicarbonate in solution turns slowly into carbonate, and the solution pH was nearby 9.8 pH. So, and in this case, the pH go down after dosing and not high. After we change that, so I make a new solution, put it in, bolus comes back to work after a few days. So that's why it's when we go, sometimes the thing when we go too complicated, and now we try to search for bacteria diversification. I don't think it's a big problem.
It's not got a lot to do with bolus as such.
But it is a way. There is a point which is possible that a specific kind of bacteria can react different on it, and can have a push or not. I don't think it's a big thing because we have old tanks working fantastic with bolus. We have new tanks working good. I think it's more the depot effect and the organic compounds who thrive enough bacteria grow and acid production, which is the difficulties in older tanks instead of newer tanks or the variety.
Yeah, it's much harder to keep your pH where it needs to be with high organics. It's much harder if you don't keep your calcium, those elements that are going to cause precipitation. So having your magnesium in ratio with the calcium, keeping your calcium within range, strontium keep within range. All of those elements are really vital. So if you're keeping it at your calcium at 480, you're not going to get bolus working very well because there'll be deposits onto the surfaces. When the deposit is made on the surface, it's binding organics and nutrients with it. It then creates an environment where bacteria can thrive in that environment, and the bacteria, as they respire, produce acids which are then working through those deposits, and they go into a much faster growth phase on the surface, which lowers the pH and reduces trying to reduce the deposits. But the problem is when the pH is low on the surface, you won't get the bolus forming. The ACC cannot form when there is a low pH on the surface. The surfaces have to be clean. So this is my message to people, is to ensure that you keep all your parameters in the correct range in order to prevent deposits on the surfaces. Keep your organics low, and you're going to have less issues.
At the end, it's the same thing which is written down since many years. So to provide precipitations is that what we doing long time. So that was also the reason why the bulling and the other stuff is using bicarbonate as a sample. And to avoid the depot effect, you see it on the reference levels on the ICP. So we don't write down it's okay to run calcium with 480 or 500 in relation to 35. We say it's 420, 440 is the maximum level. I like more 420 as 440, but it is difficult to get the goal exactly. So 440 is still okay. If it's go over 480, it starts to becoming more imbalanced. And the reason for it is that seawater is a quite imbalanced solution, which find a kind of stability over the billion of years when it's formed. And even in the sea, we have, due to kinetic energy, due to particles in the water, due to whatever reasons phytoplankton grow, we have calcareous and calcium particles falling out of the solution and going down as a reef snow. What we sometimes heard as part of it is calcium carbonate in all the different variation which is possible, going down and creating these massive levels of it's not coral sand, like the oolites which we see in the Caribbean Sea. So it's producing millions of tons every year. It's turning into calcium carbonate, which is, by the way, one of our biggest CO2 sinks. Like forest and like seawater and the binding, and when silicate algae are growing, they takes a lot of CO2, and when they died, and the rest of these algae is falling down into the deep sea and stored the CO2 into the sea over a long time. Also the carbonate buildup. In this case, it's but like I say, that's one of the reasons why we have the salinity lines. The salinity line is the optimum level to have the highest stability. So a little bit more magnesium and a low, quite low, and a quite small amount of calcium, a narrow level change. So between 420 and 440, which is quite good. And I see often higher ones, so about 500. So also very often we see that with calc water. So that we have.
I actually have the numbers here. of all of the ICPs that I've seen, 36.7% have got their calcium in the correct range.
36.
36. 51% are high.
That's your customers.
My customers.
Yeah, wait. Let me check how much we have in
51%. That's incredible. So
give me a second, I can check.
And we define that by the reference range, so 440 milligrams per liter. So 51% have got over 440.
Yeah, I can check that here in my administration tool.
And the other important factor is if you've got organics, if you've got nutrients and high organics, the point of precipitation actually goes down. So you might be precipitating at 420 or 430 parts per million. So it can vary on there are other cofactors.
So we have this average version. Let me check. Must just have a check where we get an upgrade. That's another upgrade. We do another upgrade in the system here. Now I have to look on the metadata.
While you're looking, there's a question here from Kevin C. I have a very heavy LPS and softy tank. Should I increase my trace 1, 2, and 3 in my alk and calcium beyond 25 mils per 5 liters? Yes, if the ICP is saying that you're persistently low on certain elements. So if you use the Balling trace calculator, it will tell you how much of each of the trace bottles that you should put into your Balling light salts.
What is the question for me?
No, I think that's the answer. It's okay. You were looking for the calcium numbers.
Yeah, it does not work at the moment. I don't know.
Doesn't
why.
work. Okay. But it's surprising how many people have got high calcium on their ICPs, and it's something I warn everybody against. Try and keep your calcium within range, because you're going to get some precipitation. I'll do a video on it at some point. It's planned, that talks about how all of these elements that are in the water is actually a miracle that they stay there. And quite often they don't stay there. In the sea, a lot of these elements are falling out of solution quite often at a surprising rate. So try and keep those reference ranges are there for a reason. Because if you keep the parameters, keep those elements within the range, there's a likelihood you're not going to be precipitating those elements out. I actually have some other statistics which are kind of interesting.
Wait,
talk about
now I know what I make wrong. Give me a second. So I got some. We got some new stuff here. So now we can. You say calcium. So
calcium that's over 440.
So analyses which are higher. So the measured median is about 420 milligrams, and I take 197,000 of tests, and on the 197,000 tests, what I have in my metadata, we have analyzes between 400 and 440. It's about 29.5%. Less, higher than 400. Oh, there's a mistake in. No, higher than 440 is 32%, and lower than 400 is 37% of all. That's all worldwide. So
one takeaway from this live stream to everyone would be keep your calcium in range. I just think it's so important.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is, at the same time, the alkalinity is over 72% is in the correct level. The calcium not, but the alkalinity is on the correct level, and the calcium not. So that's something which is really even the potassium level is better than the calcium level.
You know, I may have some of that information here. Yes, it is. Potassium, 52% are in the okay. Wow. Strontium as well is quite high, 60%.
You must see that we have different amounts of tests which we use in this metadata.
Sure. Yeah, for
and
sure.
It also must be said that we use for this metadata, we use cleaned data. So we don't use zero or when it go too high, because if somebody has, let me say, sending a sample from a calcium salt for testing, something like that, we put that out. So we only use numbers in between ranges. And it is the other thing what I will do now in future is from the countries, the differences. So I see a lot of difference in the country. So sometimes iodine level is very low in the right correction. Some of the others are very high. But it depends on the country.
Yeah.
So we must check it. So yeah.
84% of magnesium. 84% of all tests had magnesium okay in the correct range. So magnesium's very good. Calcium, not very good for UK and US customers. And I think mainly for the US, you're skewing my numbers here because a lot of calc users tend to have very high calcium. Now, you may be thinking, well, what's the big deal? Okay, so I've got calcium, I got a little bit of deposit going on. Well, the problem is that I've got another analysis here that looks at high calcium and high bromine levels. So I picked out just those customers and looked at the other elements, the metals, to see what the stats were. So of those ICPs with, what's the really good one here? Copper.
But this is the typical cutwater stuff. So
sure. But actually it applies to anything. If you've got high calcium, you're going to lose metals. They're going to be depositing onto your surfaces. So looking at copper, it was 60% of all of the ICPs had low or undetectable copper. So those are just for the ICPs that have got high calcium and high bromine levels. Same with nickel. Nickel was 69% of all ICPs had low or undetectable nickel. So this, I mean, I can't see any better way of highlighting the impact of having high calcium. It's the stats tell you right there, if you've got high calcium, you're going to be losing metals.
You will losing metals always when you start to have precipitations. So you're losing them all. But it depends a little bit on what you dose, then it's a small difference also.
Yeah.
And if you dose these calc waters or carbonate, you're creating magnesium hydroxides shortly into the water. Some of that can be diluted back later, but it's not that much. It's only 2 milligrams per liter can be dilute as from the magnesium hydroxide in seawater. The bigger problem is that the adsorption effect of these particles is 10 times higher than of the calcium carbonate particles.
Yep.
So that's the problem if you're working with these too high levels. So create them. And we do the testing on these precipitations, and it shows exactly the metals and elements where they are. So when I look at the molybdenum about our in Germany, it's can say most of them have good levels or a little bit higher. And according to that, the American and also the UK is way lower, way lower. So
Yeah.
it's less than 28%, which has a right molybdenum level,
Molybdenum.
and molybdenum. Right,
Molybdenum.
that's crazy
Oh,
speaking. And
my good friend, Mickey Boy calls it molybendium.
molybdenum, yeah, that's also nice.
Molybendium.
It's like a planetaria for the tubularias. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but so there you see in these countries strong differences.
Mm.
And this is very important because this element is really important. It's I would say iodine and molybdenum is the most important element which you can have on it. So in the trace element part, not in the micros or in the macro elements. And you see a huge difference between the standard Balling dosing, and these countries are using that, and the countries are using still more these calc water sample. The others that the zinc of that is way higher, and also due to the precipitations. And we see in this, I will publish soon, in these precipitations where we see that, you see exactly that elements together with organic compounds, together with all other things which are laying on the surface. And like, if you see how big is the surface in an aquarium, that alone shows you that we cannot do calculation in natural seawater, because the sea is huge, the water change is big, and if there's a little bit of particle laying around in the reef, the next storm it's done, the next high waves it's washing away, and it does not matter. So you can put the ship into a reef and it will grow over the course. It does not matter. So because the water flow is all day long, it's fresh water coming, which is a different in the aquarium where we turn the shit around in circles. So that's why our goal, our way, how we do the methods of the ICP, how we working with the farm and do the interpretation from farm to the levels, and I cannot say it does not matter to the natural situation. Absolutely not. So, but it's something different. So it's not the same thing like I have in a reef. And there is also the next, in my opinion, huge misunderstanding is what the animal gets over the water is one thing. What they get over the food is a second. And
what they're getting from ACC
and
is
what they
actually another
gain,
source, because there's a
what
lot
they
of
gain from,
organics and stuff in the
this is.
ACC.
Yeah, and it is known. It is known that cores and also clams taking very small particles out of the water and using them for growing. And this idea is not new.
No.
It is a very, very old idea, but it's a little bit forgotten sometimes. Is some years ago it was a very well-known product was reef snow. So where people using very fine calcium carbonate particles to dose into the tank, it makes the tank, it looks clean. The cores will be wide open with the polyps, the skimmer working better. So there was a long time we doing something like reef snow dosing, which was sometimes was calcium carbonate a little bit with ammonia. Some people change it doing some amino acids in or some sugars in or some vitamins in. Over the time, we created a product like Core Balance, which is at the end a type of reef snow, but with phosphate binding effect and feeding effect. So there's the one way is it's particleized phosphate is in. At the same time, it binds polyphosphates out to make them skimmable out. So but these products, I have the feeling these products becoming a bit too complicated now for this time. If it's a water treatment, a water cleaner, and a food in ones, for the most people, it's starting to becoming too confusing. What's that now? So they like more have this is for absorbing, this is for feeding, this is for water treatment. But in the seawater system where we work for, you can't say it is one alone. So it even depends how I dose calcium. If I dose calcium as calcium hydroxide, I have a different reaction as I dose calcium and calcium chloride. And when I try to dose calcium carbonate, even in a small form, they don't go back into solution as long as they stay in water. As long as they can go over the surface, and you have the pH on surface and the bacteria are working on the surface, it's possible these small particles will be diluted will be destroyed and come back into the water. So you have with calcium, we talk about calcium, but it's also necessary to know how and which calcium we put into the tank. And that's a big difference in the chemistry.
Yeah, and EPS actually makes a big difference to that precipitation as well. It's all working together. So if there's EPS around, it will take in those particles and it joins it with an organic matrix. It could be nucleated. It could be, there's lots of different combinations of things going on, which would then make it, it wouldn't dissolve again for a long time, or for a while at least.
Depends on your current, depends on the
Bacteria.
Depends on what you dose, depends on the sugars you give, depends on
Yep.
short carbon sources, long carbon sources.
Yep.
I think we're living in a time where we like to have very simple solutions. And you see that also in videos live stream in ICP, which talking about ICP or other things that which I cannot understand. It cannot be, which I don't
That's why we
see.
came up with bolus, wasn't it? It was to make it simple. You dose the alkalinity once. can't get much simpler.
But you know, it's on the other side a little bit understandable if you say if you dose one time that you have a more stability in the system as you have without. This is what I mean with make it simple. It is not simple. The chemistry and the physical effects and the chemistry behind the bolus is definitely not simple. You see how we had ideas. Some of them were not exactly that what happens then later. It goes in the right direction, but it was not exactly like that. And how deeper we go, then we come back, oh yes, the first idea was okay. So, and later we had to talk about the view on things. So from which side, from which place I have a view on it. We had people, fully chemists, whatever, reporting that what they learned in school. Then we find out, oh, in school they have nothing to do with seawater. So then we had to deal. Then we had to deal with the different ways people working on it. And later it's the same. So why I should change my system? The calc water is running well. Yeah, it is. No one said that if you can handle disadvantages, then it goes. So in every system has advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah.
So it would be quite interesting to see later the things of elements and the way it goes, and they will, even then if you publish that, they will focus only on this point, not on the whole system thing. So Joe Yaulo in New York example, he running his tank with slurry and elements and stuff, and he's a superb aquarist guy, so he has a really good feeling for it, and he's very passionate, and he works the whole day on this tank. Then he has power and movement and water movement in. So the whole strategy of his reef tank is that the flow goes through, so particles can be taken out, skimmers can take it out. The way he does is very smart, and he knows exactly how to deal with the tank because he did that since 30 years. We have, that we have mostly to deal with beginners, which has not the experience and not the feeling and not the possibility like some Joes had. So then it comes back to the discussions that people say, yeah, but look, Joe's using that. So if I use it, it will goes also well for me. But I always think, look, this is a misunderstanding. Even if you have the same haircut like this model, you still be not the same person. And or you'll still be ugly, so it's only the hair. So this is really a misunderstanding sometimes. What this guy's doing, it's the same with Olivier or Oli Zakwa here. He has this feeling about how to use the stuff and when to dose it and to which time and how to prepare the water movement, that every corer gets enough power, the dirt will be taken out. This is the key of success at the end. So of that, and 100% a good reefer with knowledge and experience, he can run a nice aquarium with all systems on the market. Then later he will see. So the first 80% is easy to get, but if it's go longer than 1.5 years, 2 years, and you take the average of all customers, then you see that maybe 1 to 5% of the beginners, they have from beginning on the good feeling and can create a very nice aquarium with discipline, with more work, and however people made it. But we have to take care as a company of the other 95% of people, 90% of people also, to provide systems where you can run the tank long
So
term.
I call it the honeymoon period. You know, you've got 18 months when everything's good. and then you start getting the deposits starting to show, and then the pH issues might start, and then you're trying to get the stability's maybe not quite as where it needs to be. It always happens. So, but that's really the reason why the bolus method was created. You know, to get that long-term stability. So you're not having all the issues relating to precipitation. Just answering Ollie's question here. So people want it as simple as possible, proven and explained down to the smallest detail. I agree. There's a problem with that, is that we're still learning so much stuff. I've worked now with bolus for 2.5 years, 3 years nearly, and I'm still finding out new things every day about how this works. So anybody who proclaims that they understand all of the chemistry and all of the biology and physics and everything that's happening, they are crazy. They are crazy because we just don't know a lot of this stuff. The way bolus works, it can only work is when you've got a tank with some surfaces and some corals. And the ratio of surface to water is much higher than anything you'll find studied in the ocean. So trying to equate what happens in a textbook doesn't translate over to what happens in an aquarium. And that we've seen, you know, the level of organics that are in the water, the variations in the chemistry, the variations that you might see in pH and alkalinity over the day, you know, the demand from the corals, all of this stuff, you know, the cell respiration, the bacterial load, all of that has a factor in how your aquarium works. And we're still learning. We're still learning more and more and more. We've not talked much about bolus. We've made big progress in understanding the detail behind it, and we've not released this yet. But this will come.
But Doug, this is exactly the point. So we go more and more and more into details, and it seems not that the details is actually something which is
it's not important.
Which is at the end really important. So that's the same. You know, today we talk about ICP, and the real talk about the ICP. It's the same thing. So. I'm really not sure actually how I could describe that. It's a way of discussions. What we have is would be the same if I said, I make now reef keeping 40 years and there's nothing where I can learn anymore. It is exactly going like this. And then I explain myself 10 times till I believe it, and then explain. And that we see all day long. So we have guys starting, I'm the inventor, I'm the only one who used that, and I created these specific things. And then you think, okay, the world, the Big Bang was 2008 or 2012. I don't know. So I remember my time when I work in universities, they have ICP-OS, they had MS, they have a lot of machineries there. And saltwater analyses were made before the aquarium industry find out that there is a machine possible. So, and these people running the things are also not stupid. Same as not the company, which is not stupid to build the things they are running. Guys, they're knowing how to deal with it. It is correct that we have to find our own systems and our own ways to create levels and to know if we have for us correct data under the circumstances of detecting seawater, which is a shitty thing. So it makes no fun. So, and to search the best explained for ICP testing is in seawater is that we search a sand grain in a dune. While a freshwater analysis is to search a needle in a haystack, which is simple. So, and that describes for me as best as possible. So now today I get some messages about people in another forum claiming our ICP is the unprecise in the world. Okay. So nowadays we have the situation that people who don't work in analysis, so has not the education for it and don't use the machines, can exactly describe as an expert how it goes and what it means. So they're becoming all experts. So earlier I know that when you have a soccer game, you have 5 million experts as trainer in front of the TV screen. They know everything. So none of them can even run 100 meters without falling down to be exhausted, but they know it. So they know everything. And this coming into the aquarium industry also in the last years massively. So also in the ICP, in the analysis, we learn every day. And yes, it makes everyday mistakes or some issues with the testing, some issues with the machine. Now is our lab now. So we have the machines from Agilent. That's what Oceamo is using. We have the machines of Spectro, which everybody's using, which the blue, we have the green. We have MS, we have some specific machine, which at the moment only we have. And sometimes I see the discussions if they say, this is a total different thing. I said, no, it's not. It's quite the same value. Yeah, but this is a 30 point less magnesium in your ICP as in the other ones. So 30 from 1300 is a few percent, which is in the range of normal testing. And I don't know when you take the sample and how clean you do it. But also there you have all this discussion happens mostly not between the labs by self. So we have the discussions between the lab by self. They say, hey, we were a 1.8%. That was when we doing the checks with the sulfur levels. Because, remember 2 years ago, we have sulfur, a lot of problems all over the world. And we find out that only 2 labs haven't the right sulfur amount. This was due to specific mistakes making and changing. Till before, it was not a big deal because it was plus minus 10%. So if somebody has now 880 or 800 sulfur, it makes no big difference because in non-system, it shows as a problem in non-system. But after the levels come down due to another problem, it comes to attention that something cannot be right. Because we have all the signs of low sulfur and others say, oh, it's still high enough. So then we need to find out what is the problem. So why we have a 10% difference between other labs on it, which is not usual, not in that labs what we usually talk about.
Yeah.
And we had then the next situation, which makes it from some larger aquariums who told us they don't believe our values because the sulfur level goes too much down. So they say we had 20 years the sulfur stable, now it goes down, so your lab must be wrong. So we do the testing and say, no, it's right. No, it's impossible. And so now you have the discussions in believing. You don't have a dilution in facts. You have something in the believing. So yesterday somebody says, "Oh, I do not earn money on it, so that's why it's right what I said." But it could also mean I don't have the money for the machines. So then I search to argue for to say why it's bad or why it's not used. So I don't know. It's becoming more and more and more a time of believing, not a time in facts. And as long we have only 30% of the people in a proper calcium, I see no big deal in to discuss about the physical effect of calcium carbonate particles, what they do on the surface. So we have to take care that calcium and that levels being stable and make understandable why the relations are so important and how ICP is running and what mistakes ICP can have due to the way how the sample is taken and due to that what people are doing at home. You're still there? So you're freezing at the moment. It is from me or it's you, Doug? Jetzt bräuchte ich mal kurz ein Feedback von euch, wenn es geht. Unser Duck ist draußen. Ja, also Duck ist frozen, das ist ja nice. Ich habe hier irgendwie noch ein ziemliches Delay hier in meinem, ist auch spannend, muss mal hier gucken. So, jetzt versuche ich den mal wieder einzuladen. Momentchen. So. Jetzt hole ich ihn mal wieder rein. Sein Telefon starb. Schauen wir mal, ob er wieder rein darf. Hi, Doug.
Sorry,
So,
my phone decided to die.
for whatever reason.
Yeah. I have to.
But you see, it is
balance you
quite.
here.
Yeah, but it's quite nice to see that we can re-invited one guest. But as I understand, we can only invite one guest. I don't know if it's possible to invite more guests. So we have we have a nice question from Ollie again. It's very active today. Maybe it would be interesting to explain when the ICP-MS from Fauna Marin is coming and how it will be integrated into existing ICP results. I want to make short, finish what I said. I think at the moment we have a situation where something need to be explained super deep. A lot of experts are joining a discussion without having any points on how run machines and what it means, and even not run a farm or doing interpretation with that amount of people and data what we have. So it's hard to find people where you can make a discussions under a good level and make it understandable for the user. So I think it is nice if we talk about all these details about bolus, but at the end, as long as we have the situation that 29% of all the people having a right calcium levels, we need to have other talks about stability, about how to keep the animals alive.
Yeah.
I think this is more the point, and we're also losing it a little bit also last year to these massive bolus discussions, because it was more a personal discussion. It was not a technical or discussions about how bicarbonates works. It was only a political discussion, like so many discussions around the world we have now. And this is, I think it's a bit a problem for the reefing themes, because it will not bring knowledge to the people if we discuss about that way. So about the questions about the ICP-MS from Ollie. The ICPs, the software should be ready in the next week, 10 days. And we do long checks now about which parameters we will put into the MS. To make understandable for everybody, the MS is not good to detect every parameter. So it's not very good for phosphorus. It's not very good for aluminum. It's not very good for calcium and magnesium and that stuff. So we use the OAS for it. So we search now with which machine we can get the best results and put that together. So in future, if you have the total test kit and you ship the test to us, you can decide as with an upgrade if you like to have an MS, if you like to have a DOC and an NPOC, we call it, and total nitrogen, or if you want an MS as an upgrade. We put then the necessary amount of water from your sample and do an MS testing for that and publish that into a specific PDF, which comes into your account. So it's no need to send us a test. It's no need that we ship out tests. So it saves a lot of plastic and a lot of work. And if you choose a supporter, which we recommend, that he can do the interpretation of the MS and of the levels then, he will get a provision about these sales. So these upgrade will cost 29 euros for the MS. So you book the upgrade on the lab, and automatically we will do then. So we do the acid in, we prepare the sample specific make for the MS, what is necessary, and then we do it to the MS, and you will get it on the PDF in your account, but then it's marked as an MS testing. So the different values will be divided then, so everybody can have the results how we want, and you can choose to do the MS whenever you want. So if you have now the situation on a we say Friday, and you say, I'm not sure, I dose this, okay, then I will join this time an MS. You can do that whenever you want. It's not necessary you make an extra purchase of an MS test or something like that. It's so we can use our standard total tests, and everything else is then upgraded. So, and this is also one of our next step to work with our existing and future consultants, to give them the possibility to go deeper into all the data. That's why they get the data about it in the schooling or in the seminars what we do, and they can earning a bit on the money on the sales cost. At the moment you make the upgrade, you pay it into. You pay the upgrade on the lab directly. So one of the reasons is a tax reason. It's also a huge problem because an upgrade and this type of it's a service, and the service is made in Germany. That means that everybody from outside of Europe and outside of Germany has to pay it with the German sales tax. So we put them together, so everybody have the same price at the end when it's go over the world, and you don't need to take care about shipping, about time, something like that. So you can activate the sample, you put the MS on it, and you ship the total test out. And then we do all the testing round. So from the fluorides to the nutrients, up to the MS, up to the OAS. So then it means now we use 4 machines for your total test, and then we have 5 or 6 different machines which we use for your test. And for that, I just write all the text for it, for the knowledge base. Yesterday, I write germanium, which is one of these elements we detect. It's not becoming more interesting, so because we never see a lot of these very specific elements, but it's possible that you can get them. So in the next few weeks and months, we need to discuss more about to explain the exact sense of MS testing. So why MS can make sense. And the truth is, it can make sense, but it means not that all the time it makes sense. So it's an additional possibility to go deeper into understanding of the aquarium, but it's not necessary to do it all day long. And others, as claimed in the US now, but there's also 1-2 guys doing that massively, but they're completely wrong, and the mass is not more accurate. And it's the only thing, it can go deeper, but it means not that it's more accurate.
We need a
which is
discussion on precision versus accuracy. That's something I spend a lot of time explaining.
And the sensitivity. You forget sensitivity, which is, but that's everything is, all labs are working with that have to fight with the situation that seawater is a horrible matrix for testing. We do, meanwhile, for the most German and European zoological gardens, institution, universities, we do the testing for them, because they even said, till we have our machine cleaned, you do it faster and cheaper as we can do on our own. When they have to make a seawater testing, they really hate it. And I see in our machines how often we need to clean them, how often we have to do the service on them, because it's one sample's bromine. So on these spectro machines, on the Agilent, you cannot detect the bromine on the OAS, but so you need the spectral ones. And if you run that amount of tests like we do, you cannot do the standard service once a year, because there are optical parts inside, and they get a little bit of dust on it, or a little bit of a little bit of fog on it over the time, and you need to clean these optical sensors. If you don't do that, you will have a reduced bromine level.
Right.
In
Interesting.
There's so many different things who affected the values, the real values, that that's why we do the change between the interpretation team and the lab team. So I would not control my own tests. It makes no sense if you control your own thing. That's a bit the same if you control your own writings. You will not see the mistakes you make. Other people, it's easy to see. The interpretation team working only with the data and working with the animals. And we have some specific animals where I can see if the bromine level is which is okay, if the pH is okay. So all these little things, and many mistakes, which is not coming from wrong sampling, is also coming sometimes from software updates. So you can't believe how software updates sometimes has an effect on machineries or on data or on upload on data. So if they make an update on we had one in an update of ASCII file stuff where we work for it, and it changes. It installs a separate line in, so it pushes some of the lines to another level. So we provide automatically the wrong numbers out. So, and nobody see it coming that this update is doing that. So it was an update, a mistake after we see that very fast. So we can stop it and send the right parameters then doing back. But sometimes you really get crazy if they do the updates. And if Windows updates coming here and that coming there, we have actually 25 computers and about 5 servers running only for the farm. And every time when we do updates, so updates for the software of the machines, upware of the computers, update on the servers, update on the lab database. And every time when we do upgrades, it's always a little bit of risk that something can happen. So we have to check it on it. So, but that's why we need the interpretation. So that's why it's important.
I'm looking forward to MS because there's some work that I'm doing at the moment on enzymes that drive photosynthesis, and it's looking at those metalloenzymes in carbonic anhydrase. So things like manganese, iron is very important. Some of these are skimmable as well. So understanding if issues that people are having with pH or issues are having with growth could be down to a shortage of carbonic anhydrase. So that's something that ICP OES will not help you much with, but I think with MS we'll get a much better picture.
So, did you see Ollie's question, the last one?
I'd be interested to know what Doug does when he gets his own ICP results, step by step, what he looks at, and especially what he doses and what he doesn't dose afterwards. Okay. I don't know who. Well, for those who don't speak English, a cobbler is a man who makes shoes. So he's the guy with the hammer who's hammering the nails into the shoes. Yes. And there's a saying in English which is, "You never look at a cobbler's shoes because they'll be the worst. They'll be the worst shoes." So don't take what I do as a good example. What I do with the ICP is I get the results back. Generally, my ICPs are pretty good in terms of metals and halogens, because I'm very aware of surfaces. So generally, there's very small corrections to be made on the the sort of the main trace elements. I tend to look at it. Always comes back with iron, cobalt, and selenium. Those I advise my customers are optional. So you don't want to dose those necessarily every single time, because you're going to have a lot of those elements going in with the foods that you're feeding. So MS is going to give us a much bigger insight into some of those elements, which is exactly why I'm excited for MS. But that's it really. I mean, there's not a lot more to say. I look at my ICPs mainly to confirm the salinity. It's the first thing I ever look at. I look at the calcium level. I look at if everything's in relation. So is the nitrate in the correct ratio to the phosphate? Is the calcium and the magnesium in the correct relation? There's one ratio that nobody's really looking at enough, is FSS on the total test, which is a very, very important ratio. It's the fluoride to sulfur to strontium. And I think that is really a very crucial ratio that people should be looking at. There's definitely something very important going on with obviously having the right fluoride level, but having the right sulfur and the right strontium, they all work together. So that's something I think it's unique to the fauna test, is that ratio, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
FSS.
that's we worked that out in this time when we have the problems with spiderweb or German coral illness. What you UK guys said. But it's not a thing where they started. So the fluoride, we were one of I think we were the first lab who provide the fluoride testing all over the time, because we know about the halogens since long time. During the time when we do the I must go a little bit more back in the 2000s. I work with Jörg Kockert, with the German guy here who have his own brand, Sangokai. He was a scientist. He was in Townsville, as I know, and he do his study in coral metabolism very deeply, going into the corals about zooxanthellae and structure and all things. And I bring him into the aquarium business many years ago, and he created then, after some steps in wholesale and in a large North German company, he makes his own brand. And he has a very deep understanding about the metabolism of corals. And he showed us, he has a talk. It was a very funny talk. It was the first time, I think it must be 2004, 2005, 20 years ago. He was invited here in a small club. They make a nice meeting, and he takes a talk about the proteins and the enzymes and zooxanthellae and proteins, how to create coloration. And he's talking like a scientist. He was full passionate, and step by step, people leaving this this talk. So it was really complicated. I could follow it, let me say, 15 minutes, and then I was out. So okay, there's no idea what he's talking about. And this enzyme doing that, and then comes the light on it and activating, and this mitochondria.
It's Krebs cycle. It's the Krebs cycle.
Yeah, but it was really great for me because it opens the eyes for a few things, because I see which elements we're providing. And at this time, I work with him on NPS corals and on organic compounds. So we worked there together, and I had a small system in my apartment there. And I see that when I raise up the halogens, like bromine, fluorine, we understand at this time, these are protecting agents. So it's everything can have an effect for providing or for protecting. Yeah. So like the fluorescent, of course, can be different. Can be used to collect light. It can be used to reflect light or to protect the coral. And since that years, but we didn't know exactly how, because we know a lot about the inorganic stuff, but very little about the organic and the bacteria stuff around. So a little bit later, 10 years later, I had a nice talk with another guy who do studying in specific molecules corals using to prevent from parasitic situation, from to protect them, to I think also super complicated, but I get this message that they doing specific elements about with sulfur, with fluoride. It comes, step by step. You heard the things and you try to find out, but this was not studied yet. So till now, it's very hard to find a little bit details. And if you find details, they come from the sea.
Yeah.
And this is a large problem for us, because in the sea, we have sometimes not the same amount of elements and stuff which we have in the aquarium.
Organics. Look at the amount of organics.
Organics is sometimes super different. On the other side, they have food. It's a lot of food. And you see that many scientists, or people who call them scientists, which are mostly not, they look only on the water. So they said, oh, we find 1.1 grams of fluoride. It could not be important. So on the other side, they don't look into the core. But okay, but why it's there? So even strontium is a perfect example. So long strontium, strontium makes nothing. It is there because it's nearby calcium, and it will be used in the skeleton, but it has no effect. So. But you can ask every coral farmer, you can ask them, everyone, all those scientists, all do practical work since 20, 30 years. Would you take the calcium level, the strontium level down to 5 or 4, and cause calcium can use? But everybody's like, are you completely crazy? Definitely not. We see exactly what strontium doing. We know that in the 2000s that without strontium, the blue coral don't work properly. Now we know that how barium and how strontium is using by corals to protecting the skeleton and to control where the calcium is crystallized. So there is one, but there's only 1 or 2 studies about it who explained a little bit. So, and now we have to convert it from the aquarium, from the reef into the aquarium, under the idea that a lot of elements, a lot of stuff the corals can eat in nature. So they get it from the food, what they take, which we don't have in aquarium. We did not provide that amount of food, so they have to take it out of the water, which they can if they are not blocked by too much organic, by too much other things, and by, let me say, ICP, which only look on the natural factor. The natural factor is okay if you look on calcium and strontium in the main levels, but it has nothing to do with that what the corals take in, what they use. They use the light, they use the organic in the water, they use bacteria on the surface who takes the stuff out of the water, and they prey food. So, and if a coral eats a worm, the worm before eats the EPS, and the EPS concentrated, or the phytoplankton concentrated the elements out of the water by factor 1,000 or factor 10,000, then we see that some of these elements we have in milligrams instead of micrograms in the body by kilogram. So if you feed that, like when we feed Artemia, we have a bomb in elements which you put into the aquarium. And on the other side, they look on the ICP and those 0.1 microgram of iron, or make large discussions about manganese, or large discussions about fluoride, which is not neat. And I sit
Copper.
here sometimes and said I breed now more than 30 years corals, and I see you can see immediately if strontium level go down, if fluoride level go down. Fluoride makes corals hard. So
Fluoride's one of the most.
Yeah.
I consider fluoride to be the third most important parameter. I look at it in that way. Salinity, calcium, fluoride is my priority. I know it's crazy to have a priority, but
Yeah,
I think it's so important.
Iodine, you need molybdenum, you need
of course. But you look at the role that fluoride plays. I mean, there's a conversation that was going on online yesterday where somebody was claiming that
that was not a conversation. That was
but that fluoride is not necessary. Well, I remember a time when you didn't dose fluoride. When I first started my farm, I didn't dose fluoride, and you had tremendous problems with weak skeletons and parasites in the skeleton. So when fluoride is being deposited between 4 and 6, 7% into the skeleton, and it strengthens the skeleton, and the organisms that are going to go into the skeleton of a coral are eating through it. They're boring skeletons, whether it's a cyanobacteria or it's a worm or some kind of pod of some description. There is a toxicity related to fluoride, and it protects the skeleton of the coral. How is that not obvious? Crazy.
It's not only that. So actually, it's about 700. It plays a role in about, I think, 600 or 700 enzymatic reactions.
Yeah, exactly.
It brighten up the core, so it prevents zooxanthellae and too much burning. It has inside the core, it's using as antiparasitic. So together it will be used to make molecules. And what we see, it prevents too much bacteria growth and algae growth. And as we use it to harden our teeth, with it's the same structure,
appetites,
which is the same structure coral uses. So I'm not sure why it should make them weak. And I think
dealing with reactive oxygen species.
Yeah, it's 4 or 5% is in the skeleton. It's fluoride.
Yeah, I mean, I think it varies regionally. There's a study in Japan. I think they were saying it was like 7%.
Yeah, I think 5. I learned, but I'm not sure. No.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
Yeah. It's but what I mean, it's the machine. We cannot. The only thing what was right yesterday was that we cannot detect fluoride with ICP machine. But for that we buy a long time ago. We buy other machines for it, which we can use. This IC doesn't work proper on fluoride. It's a big problem with HPLC and IC. It's possible, but it's a difficulty because you have to dilute it. We are investing in machines which were quite expensive. to do it with these high-speed analyzers, so we can do simultaneous tests, and there we find a good way for the fluoride levels. And what I find out over the years is there is a point where you can stabilize the iodine level. So if fluoride is between this 1.6 and 1.9, which we recommend, or 2 milligrams, it stabilized the iodine level way better as when the fluoride is low. And this shows the data, and the analysis shows absolutely. I had a discussion with another lab guy who tells me there is no chemical evidence on it. I say, yes, but look, all what you learned is chemistry in freshwater or organic chemistry, but none of it plays a role in seawater. So it's very hard to find people who study that, what happens in seawater, in these matrix around. It may, that's the same as the strontium stuff and the fluorine stuff in the FSS. I'm not 100% sure what is the exact way, how they build the molecules, if the bacteria involved, it's only the coral do it, which coral can do it, on which way they do it. I don't know. Well, what I can tell you, if I use the data of about, meanwhile, we had about 800, 900 people reporting of the spider web. Okay, and we had 8 or 9% of altogether. We were in the highest peak, where 13% of the people who had sulfur levels under the 750. So, and if you take these two graphs in the same time, as sulfur go down, the reports of illness go up.
Yep.
And after the people dosing the sulfur back and bringing the levels down, the amount of illnesses report coming back. So you can see over 1.5 years with several thousand tests, you can see how the 800 tests which are used for spiderweb. And we also see in the farming and in other things, when we raise up the sulfur to a certain level, which is a little bit higher than in nature, the illnesses of Ophelia and RTN goes down. So we have no more RTN. We're losing maybe we have a few thousand heads of Ophelia. We're losing maybe every 2 weeks. We're losing 1 or 2 heads. But sometimes they scratch each other. But I never see in this amount brown jelly or something like that. So, and we have always the discussions, the focus on today is discussions about manganese, cause it's in the salt. So, but they forget what else is in the salt and if it's really a problem or not. And so every day is another pig running through the.
But just because it's an element that's visible doesn't mean it's reactive. So that manganese is coming out through the skimmer, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it is. It is a point, Did you see on the other way? Did you see on Reef Builders last week the report about the scientist checking about manganese on corals?
No.
Yeah, you should read that, because that's something which is completely typical. How wrong ideas coming to the market. Somebody tested manganese and they find out that young corals are different affected to manganese as old corals. So, and in the description, how they put up the testing system, they put a testing system and they said, yeah, we put these manganese on it, checked by ICP. Now I don't know which ICP they use. I must read it fully. And the next thing is that they put the small fracs on plugs of a specific company. So, and these plugs is the dirtiest thing I ever see in my life. So they're so full of vanadium, of all others, that we talk about milligrams, not micrograms. It's unbelievable, these frac plugs. So now you will say to me that you have an empty aquarium, it's no surface, you put the manganese on it, and then you say this has the effect, and on the other side you have no idea about that, where you put the small fracs on the plugs. If I have such a plug releasing such amount of elements into the water and taking elements on it, it's not sure that the manganese even come to the core. It's also
So what were
possible
they?
it
So
will
what
be
were they saying? What were they saying about the?
Yeah, that is a different relation between young cores and old cores to manganese. So we need a specific amount of manganese for the cores. We need that, but when you dose it, you have immediately fast precipitations. Manganese is absolutely not stable in water. You need to complex it.
Yep, has to be collated and comes in through organics, right? Through
yes, exactly. And manganese is not manganese. It depends on which oxidation state and on which way you put it into organics, which you can use or not. Then you have the cores who can take it very easily. This type of cores, which is more coast, near the coast, they have mostly higher iron, higher manganese reactivity, so they can use it better. It's like LPS and that stuff. But when you go out of the reef, if you take Great Barrier Reef, sometimes 50 miles, 60 miles, 100 miles outside of the coast, and they get this amount of elements and nutrients, they're reacting like over-fertilization and they die very fast on it. So
it can also be desorption. So if you've got an old coral, it's got skeleton, dead skeleton, which has got a lot of metals bound into the skeleton, particularly if there's organics. And if
it's
you
not
then
only organics, it's the adsorption effect of calcium carbonate.
Absolutely, yeah.
They work like adsorber, so it's in standard.
So
it's okay.
if you get desorption, if you remove it from the if you end up with low manganese in the water, it's going to come back out of the skeleton.
Yeah, possible.
Same with phosphate. I mean, it happens with phosphate all the time.
You must read that in Reef Builders. It's quite fun. We had the same a few years ago. We have the same as a test of zinc, and it was an empty aquarium, overlighted. Nobody take care of the halogens about the light issues coming in of molybdenum. And then they put zinc in, and they put only zinc in, and not in combination like it is normally in nature. So this type of studies for me is a little bit senseless at all for us. So maybe it's nice to
because it needs all of those metals for the electron transport. Frag Rocks, you asked a question about Reefers Club somewhere. I noticed it earlier. Reefers Club is live in the UK. If you go on the Frag Farm webpage, you can join Fauna Marin Reefers Club.
Yeah. So then the next question would be, what do you think about redox ORP? I use it as an indicator for organics. The ORP I love to work with. The problem is that the sensors and the what's the English word for it? The effects on all other things, they affect the sensors that massive that sometimes it's difficult to use it as it should be. So the most sensors are wrong. Are not in the right quality, then they are wrong installed. The next things that you need to clean them very often to keep them proper. You have to take care that the tank is with a titanium probe grounded. So without the grounded reef tank, the ORP cannot detect properly. I really like that, and you should. I use that in zoological gardens very often. So in the large aquarium for sharks and others, we use very often that we say, hey, try to take it on 330, 350. Between 280 and 350, it's okay. For reef tanks, quite good. So I like to have an oxidation environmental around. And for organic, I don't use it. I use SAK or I use dog testing for organics, and not only so yes, it should be grounded.
Something that came up recently with ORP. I don't look at ORP, but Adam, who works with me in the farm, he looks at ORP. And one of the things we noticed was if you dose carbonates, it kills the ORP. So if you dose a pure bicarbonate, it boosts the ORP. So using it as an organics indicator, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, you can, But like I say, the problem is you have too much influence of many other things.
Yeah,
If
exactly.
you
That's why. Yeah.
if you use it proper, if you have drowned it and you stay the whole day on it, then you can see on the trend levels if it's correct or not. So in this case, it's a good tool. It's not bad. I don't use it in my farm, but it's a good tool. So for me, it's the problem that it makes no sense with so much workers we have to put sensitive and good sensors on it, because they mostly be destroyed. So during the work. So and a lot of food and that stuff. So bacteria grow and they
The
cost a lot of
staff or the
money.
sensor?
Yeah. Don't let us talk about this. So
Okay. We have another question. Is there a common mistake you see hobbyists make when interpreting ICP tests? Lots.
yeah.
Lots and lots. Go on, you start.
Oh, very simple. You're taking every number serious, and very often, very fast, they start to use no. The most big issue what we have is that they look on emotional elements. So they don't look on the elements in the right relations. They don't check what is milligram, what is micrograms, what is gram. Then they work very emotional. So sometimes, oh, I have arsenic. So shortly we have two,
Or
three.
tin. Tin is a good one.
Tin is a good one.
I've got 2 micrograms of tin. I've got 550 calcium. I'm not worried about that, but I've got 2 micrograms of tin or copper. Oh my God, copper.
And arsenic and lead. And what was very, very crazy was in February, we had 2-3 samples with mercury. So, which is normally to find mercury is a no-go. So you can't find it usually because it will be transferred immediately in an organic thing, reducing its toxicity, fall out, the temperature, everything. So it's hard to find. Now we find a few ones, and what we find out is it was between all of them was between less than 1.0, 1.5, 1.0 micrograms. The highest was 1.2 micrograms of mercury. And immediately we had phone calls and totally get crazy, this and this and this. What is the problem? Yeah, there's mercury, but the relevance line shows you it's way under a level where we have to be concerned. So you can forget it. So why it happens? And then I asked them, and the thing was they're using a reference solution which is fixed by a mercury chloride to fix the level. So in some countries you can buy such solutions, and they will be fixed. And they tested the reference solution with our ICP. So and then it could be happen that. You if you use that before you have it on your hand and you put it on it, then you can have these shows in this very low amount of things. I'd be curious now with MS. I think we will see more often these type of reaction which are too emotional, and very often I have the situation with believing. So people contacted me and telling me then what they find in the ICP, and I have the feeling that they want only to hear that I say yes, it is right. So, and then you seem they're disappointed when I said no, you have to look here and here and here on it, or when I cannot say something to the ICP before have other informations about what you use, what is the care system, what type of food do you feeding, and so they ask, I have some tin, where it comes from. I had no idea. I have no glass bowl. So we need to talk about what you use, how old is the tank. It could be from the glass, it could be from this. So the sources you can read on the knowledge base. Yeah, this is the most things happens during the day.
Yep. I think another common mistake that I see is with phosphate, because the lack of, typically if you're looking at the Reef ICP, the standard ICP is giving you the total phosphate number. which is derived, by the way, because an ICP machine cannot measure phosphate. It can measure phosphorus, and then you calculate the amount of phosphate from that. But that total phosphate number will include anything that is in the sample that contains phosphorus. So that could be bacteria, viruses, fungus, particles.
It's mostly polyphosphates, because due to
Polyphosphate,
that, due to that we have the filters. You reduced the amount of bacteria and stuff really massive. So if somebody takes the sample clean, so you know what I find out also very often is that when they clean the vials, so they cut off the current, and so on the surface you get the surface layer, and then
an oily layer, yes,
and then they clean the vials,
yeah,
which normally don't happen, and I don't know why they do it. So if you've got an oily layer on the surface of your aquarium, that can be 100 times, 1,000 times more concentrated in phosphate, right? Sure, it's bacteria.
And so one of the tricks that I always do is when you take the big vial, is invert it 180 degrees, push it down under the water, and then release the air underneath. So you're not taking the water from the surface. I need to do a video showing that. It's a very simple concept, but I see videos of people taking ICP samples and they're taking it from the surface. That's no good, because that's
depends now if you have an overflow. It's not the big issue.
But not all overflows work perfectly.
But in my system, we don't have overflows.
No.
So, but I have
there you go. Yeah.
But I have a really strong current.
Right.
So the water surface is really is working. So there is a lot of how you call it in English, the surface layer.
The surface.
This oily, what you find when water stays, and this oily bacteria film.
There is a name for it. I can't think.
In the German is Schamhaut. Scum. Right. It is a scum, really? Okay.
A scummy layer, something like that.
Okay, so that would be not a good idea. And we think that everybody have an overflow who works proper, which is not always the case, and that can cause also some issues here. Definitely.
Fragrox asking, I'm curious,
active proteins. No, not biofilm. Kammhaut. The German name of it is Kammhaut for all the Germans. The biofilm is all over the surfaces in the
biofilm
is it's the film which is lays on water, which has no surface movement. So scum. Never heard of it. So have we talked about the importance of fluorine yet? Successful Riffaquarium. No.
I'm curious, which FM additive do you think makes the biggest difference in coral health that would be that we might be underestimating? I'm curious which. There is no one.
Sea salt. If you dose the half sea salt, you don't have healthy corals. It's very simple. Sea salt. If you dose 20% more, you also don't have healthy corals. So you can do that with every other thing. You can dose 20% more. It's mostly not a problem, but not with sea salt. What?
There is no one additive that you can add that makes a difference. If it's needed, then it will make a difference. That's my view. I would say that the elements in my farm that make the difference: fluoride, sulfur, keeping dynamic metals in the correct ratio, and the middle or maybe slightly higher than the reference range. Iodine, obviously, all of those.
I think iodine and molybdenum is the most important. If we can say them as most important. So
it's not possible. But
yeah, exactly. Because if you have really no zinc in, which is a small part of it, and you have really no zinc in, so zinc is really off, nothing else is working good.
Yeah.
So it's a huge problem.
So one of the biggest uses of zinc is carbonic anhydrase, which I've been really looking into deeply. And it's a metalloenzyme, so it uses zinc primarily. And this is what converts bicarbonate in the water to carbon dioxide through the tissue. So it's what allows the carbon dioxide to pass through the tissue so that the zooks can get to it. It's bidirectional. It will convert bicarbonate to carbon dioxide and back again. And it all
but it
relies on
means not
zinc.
that. But it means not that we don't have a detection of zinc. It means always not that we don't have it in the aquarium.
No, but it can be a limiting factor.
It can, but it
It
means
can.
not automatically it does.
I totally agree, but it's something that is important, I believe.
Yeah, because we have also the detection limit where we
Yeah.
have to look for. And some of the things we also don't understand, like the same with the sulfur level. So all these enzymatic effects and effects, what we find out in biological role of sulfate is running around in micrograms. But we have a few hundred milligrams in the water. So it should be even enough if the level is lower.
But even the concentration of many of these things, the concentration of many of these things is a lot higher in the ECF, in the calcifying fluid inside the coral.
Yeah.
So even saying what's in the water is not even really.
What is in the water? What is in the food? How many molecule pressure you need that the effect can be made, and then it's possibly another thing is missing. So which we don't see in ICP, which you don't see in our amount. So sometimes it's also a mistake for me that people are looking only on the ICP. So they said, I don't understand why my corals died. ICP is perfect. It's like, yeah, because you have an infection. So, but you know, it also becoming modern to have a warranty and a guarantee. So I buy a product, I buy a car, I buy a coral, and so I have a warranty and have a guarantee. So people are shocked if they die. And then they look on the ICP, and ICP shows nothing. This one ICP shows nothing. And they said, yeah, but I need to look what happened 3, 4, 5 weeks before. And they ask, why? The coral were nice at this time. So no corals die.
It could be months. It could be months before.
Yeah. Today in my live stream in Germany, I said corals which don't grow, they die. So for corals, dying or growing, there's nothing between.
Yeah.
So
I think a coral takes on average 3 months to die. It might be one event that's happened and it can take months before it dies.
I find some events it goes much faster, so it depends. Let me say salinity goes down. So that was my in my first company I work, I had a specific name. It was 007 James Bond. So they call me 0014. So because due to
twice as good.
Yeah, due to whatever mistake I made, the salinity goes down to not salinity, the how you call it, specific gravity. It goes down to 0014. And it was a little bit too low. So the soft cores were quite okay. That the SPS died. And then later I find out why I doing the mistake. Let run the water, and so that was my.
So you're licensed to kill corals.
Yeah, I had yeah. Well, I have my experience, so I kill more corals than most other people in the world. So I know how not to do it. So I never said I know how it goes. I know how not. So what elements do you usually see come from new glass in aquariums? Annoying about that. Yeah, tin sometimes.
So when they manufacture the glass, a good aquarium manufacturer can have a tester that will test which side the tin is on.
You know it when you buy it. It's very simple.
Go on.
So no, that's a trick I don't say. So
Don't say it then.
When you build an aquarium and when you buy the glass, you know which side you have to look for.
Yeah.
Which kit. But I did not have this every time. So it's
Yeah.
depending on the liquids it's using, depending on how the glass they made it and where the glass comes from. So it's differently. But good aquarium builders build always the glass on the right side.
Tin on the outside. Don't go licking your aquarium, your new aquarium.
Yeah. So we do another 6 minutes, then we have 2 hours. So
yeah, that will be enough. Do vitamins play a big role in coral health?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. And that's one of the keys in a good product combination is the elements. What we look for is the one thing, the stuff around is the other thing. That makes a very big difference. Too much vitamins is a bad idea. Too less vitamins is a bad idea. It should be have the right one, which is nowadays really hard to find. So 20, 25 years ago, where everybody has the same setup, yeah, we have 2 metal halides different. We have 2 stream pumps. We have all the same rocks and mostly 2-3 types of sea salt. It was quite easy to get a product perfect on level. With that knowledge, what we had during that time. Now we have so many different influences in the aquarium: artificial rocks, artificial sand, artificial food, processed food. A lot of products will be mixed. This from this company, this from this company, and there is some stuff. There's a lot of stuff on the market built by people never have an aquarium or never run an aquarium. So they buy something from China. They buy something. They're doing a relabeling, and at the end, it's still that there's very little development companies in the market. Very little, only a few. And a handful who runs coral farms not longer than over years and handling a lot of different type of corals and doing then the products due to the knowledge there. The most others never do that. So they buy the stuff or they're creating a little bit or use a recipe out from the internet, but never go into the deep. Yeah. Like I told you, it's as corals know. Yeah. Corals know, by the way, what is in a reef is something different. These are particles in, but these particles are infused by infused by elements, vitamins, and stuff which is around the seawater. If we put a calcium carbonate particle and put it into the water, it's something totally different. It works as an absorber, but not as a food. So you need to infuse these particles, and the particles has to be the right size and the right structure that corals can take it in. So you have to look for how corals will take particles in, going to the skin, to the mucus, going over the polyps. A very interesting thing is example is how heavy these particles has to be. So if you want to feed, as one thing, if you feed gorgonias, something like that, and you see how gorgonias or tuberstrae staying in the reef and staying in the current, they don't stay like this. So if the current flows through, all the core stays like this. Or acroporas, when they have big tables, very often the current comes from down, so it goes up to the reef. And then you say, oh, all the food and all the particles crashing under the core. So how? And the polyps are on the top. There are no polyps down on the end. So what happens is that when the gorgonia stays here and the current is coming and transport the particles and the food with, and these bras from the core, they stop the current, and after the core, the current makes a vortex. So they transported the particles to the polyps. So the polyps stay like this, and the current brings the particles then to the polyps. It's we make a very nice video with Jamie Craggs. We visit him in Honeyman's. So since 2 years, we make the ICP for them. And they also do some scientific research on gorgonias from the the southwest coast of UK. And they showed it exactly how this goes. But it's also in tuberstrias. We know them from tuberstrias. Then the current comes from this side, the polyps eating from the other side. So due to the vortex, the current is made. And that's the same on acroporas. It's the same on others. That's why the current is so important to flash away, to bring water to the boundary layer effect, to have the carbonate on the corals, to have the food on the corals, to have the oxygen on the corals. Because when the current is not strong enough, you can dose whatever you want. It's mainly a problem if the corals grow. So you see on Ceratopora, so there is so narrow space between the arms that the water flow goes not through the colony. When a wave's coming, so there comes hundreds of tons of water pressing through the colony. It's a very strong current. It's we're talking about 25 centimeters by second, what they get, which is really hard. And so the whole water column is moving. And that stops the boundary layer effect. Sometimes we have these wave makers, and a wave maker was superb for this because they make the water move. So now with the pumps, we try in the larger aquariums, we try to move the water around, that in every step the water is moving. It's not standing, even inside the corals, because that prevents inside the corals, they get a boundary layer effect. So we detect alkalinity in the open water, which is 6.5, but we don't see that the alkalinity inside the corals go down to 2 or 3 and the pH go down. So that's why they die from the inside. And we look then on the numbers and say, oh, we have a little bit low strontium. It's low strontium does not matter in this case. It's another reason now. And that's why I say the interpretation of it is so important. To see another current, how is the current, how's the light, gives that the right relation? Did we have the water move around? And it happens in my own farm. So we had some Tubastrea migranta and Fognery, and they don't open proper. So we give them food, but they don't open proper. And I said, oh, they have no current. It's clear that they don't move. So we had this MaxSpec lamp, this MaxSpec stream pump, and I check on that, and it was totally messed up. It was completely full with dirt. So I cleaned them. I put the pump in and reprogramming in, and I can promise you, it took it took less than 2 minutes, and they put all the polyps out, which they done for days not. Because I put them direct into the current, and it's strong. It's heavy, and now they open the polyps. So
that's interesting. I'll try that because I've just got some black Tubastrea.
Yeah, you need them full undercurrent.
You need massive flow. Yeah.
Yeah.
You think where they're placed, they're normally under caves and things, aren't they? So they're
not in caves.
No?
The Misanta, did you have the full black one or the black green one?
It's the black one.
Black one. They are more in caves and stuff. So they also prepared on slopes. They stay a lot, and they stay very often under other coral colonies, so that when particles fall down, they get it. But mostly at night, they're full open, and they really catch shrimps and worms, a lot of stuff they catch, and they need high current. And it's always, they stay always like this. If the current come, they're always in 90 degrees against the current.
Yeah, and always need halogens.
They never look on it.
They like halogens.
Yeah, that's what I mean. When we started, we put up, I put a lot of food, we get a lot of organic in, and then I see that we have a bacteria grow, we have detritus build up, and so I raise up the halogens as a protecting, and it was lower, and my dendroneftia were better. And we do that test as long as we have dendroneftia growing and releasing fracs on it. So, and really, that's possible. But you need a good food, a perfect food, a lot of fat, and understanding how working with the current. And mostly we have problems in the reef tanks because we have too low or too strong. It depends on the pump.
Yeah. There's a question here. Vitamins are either fat soluble or water soluble. Are most coming in via foods?
Yes, but also over the water. So good. So we have the vitamins we have in food, we have in trace elements. Overall, as vitamins also included. Not too much. It's the point when, to which time, in which element. But we're talking about the cell functions are the same as we have them. That's animal-based cells, and so every vitamin and many of the hormones, growth hormones, are the same structure like we have. So we take care of it. Good. I would say we have 2 hours gone. I think we should do that soon again with a little bit more advertising before, so we get some more people. But we get 34 people there and 35 thumbs ups, which is a great thing. It's perfect. Doug, thank you very much. It was a nice live stream.
2 thumbs.
2 thumbs, yeah.
Thank you, Claude. It was a pleasure to.
And it works. It seems it works fantastic with YouTube, and we even can relocate it. So technical things is nice. So we can do that more often if you like. And
well, maybe we could. I've got OBS all set up here, so I could maybe the next one we could do on my channel, and we could look through some ICPs.
Yeah, we can do that also, but I have more subscribers than you, so maybe we put it here.
Okay.
We can do it both. It's also working.
We can do both.
With OBS, you can connect with both channels, and we can invite also nice other people also. So, guys, many thanks for your time. You stay here, and a lot of questions. So for 37 people, there were a lot of questions here. I'm very thankful for that. Doug, also wish you a very nice a few hours. Then the working routine comes back. So Eastern time is gone. So many thanks. Have a good night.
See you. Bye, everyone.
See you. Bye-bye.